Please pray with me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. Apparently, like many of you, I've been fighting off some kind of illness for the last 3 weeks or so, which meant the time that I would rather spend doing other things, I spent at home feeling tired. Thank God for Netflix. There's lots to watch, and you know how much I love TV, so there's always that little silver lining around my cloud. And when the world is a burning tire fire, there's nothing I love to watch more than baking shows. And the greatest baking show of them all, the Great British Bake Off, the sine qua non of baking shows. I love it because the stakes are really this large. Although when you're in the moment, they can feel this big. People outside are crying because the souffle didn't rise or the choux pastry wasn't very puffy. I will say that in Series 9, the guy that works for Doctors Without Borders never seems to be rattled by much. Maybe serving as a physician in war-torn areas puts, your butter levels into perspective. What I love about this show is that it's always about expectations versus reality. Expectations versus reality. If you're not familiar with the show, that's okay. I still like you. But every week, the number of contestants is diminished by 1 as people are sort of voted off by the 2 judges based on how well they did in 3 different challenges. A signature bake where they have sort of an outline of more or less what they should do. A technical challenge where they are given a very not complete brief and expected to complete it according to an example that they can't see, and then the showstopper at the end. I always dread the technical bake. The bakers are told that they're going to bake something that they may or may not have ever heard of, ever seen, ever tried, or ever made. And they're expected to make it according to an example that they're not given. So we, as the audience, see the 2 judges, Paul Hollywood and crew, who, Alex Trebek style, know the answers and smugly talk about what the good qualities are. But the bakers are saying, I have no idea. I have never seen this thing before. Expectation versus reality. The worst part is they're judged against an expectation that they may not know anything about. It's that mismatch of expectations that causes all the drama, all the tension, all of the music to rise and swell as the clock wears down and the puff pastry comes out of the oven. We hope that it'll be a full puff, but we don't know. Expectation versus reality. I think for many of us, really for all of us, it's the mismatch of expectations that causes the most trouble, no? Have you ever noticed that in the most important relationships in your life, with the people that you live with, that you love, that you work closely with, that the mismatch of your expectations is where all the tension comes from? Each of you has an ideal in mind about how the world is and how it should go. And when you are faced with each other, you, in essence, are the ones who are presenting the other person with the technical challenge. How should our relationship be? And when it doesn't quite meet the unpictured expectation, there's a sense of not meeting the needs, not matching the brief. It's a tough place to be. It's a human place to be. And 2 of our stories from this morning's lectionary give us really strong examples of mismatched expectations. What the reality is versus what the expectation is. What we thought the brief would give us and what we actually pull out of the oven. The first one comes from the prophet Haggai. Now, we don't spend a lot of time with these prophets. We've spent weeks with Jeremiah, have we not? I bet you thought, oh my gosh, thank God, no more Jeremiah. For weeks we've been talking about Jeremiah. Jeremiah saying to the people of Judea, you need to shape up or you will be shipped out. And then they are shipped out. As the people are taken into exile, and Jeremiah leaves them. Remember that one week where he says, I know it's bad, but it's going to be good again. You will come back. You will be in the land again. So for all the years that the people are in exile, that sense of expectation about how good it's going to be when they come back is building. The sense of what are things going to be like? You know what? It's all going to be fine once we get back to Judea. I know things are bad now, but once we get back to Judea, just you wait and see. It's going to be great. And then guess what? They're free from exile. They get back to Judea. And it's not so great. Things are not so good. The temple, the jewel of their tradition, of their religion, of their culture, of their entire life has been destroyed. There's not much left. It's just rubble. There's no stores left, so now all of their time, all of their energy is spent just trying to put food on the table, trying to scratch out that daily bread. There's not as many people as there used to be, so who's going to build up this temple again? The world and the way it was, it's not there anymore. What are you going to do? I was reading that this week, and I thought about the church that we had and the church that we have. I thought about how things were when I was a kid, how things probably were when you were a kid and when you came to church, unless you were a kid now, in which case, this is when you are a kid. When I was a kid in church, everybody went to church. Everybody that I knew went to church, or something like church, synagogue or something. The pews were full, the choir was massive, Sunday school burst out of all the rooms. There were just flannelgrams for days. But that's not the case anymore. Our culture has changed. And sometimes we think, oh, but if we can just get back to where we were, it's all going to be better. If we can just roll it back to 1950 something or 1960 something, or I'm not going to say what year I was born, but that year, it's all going to be better. But the reality on the ground is very different. The ideal that we held is not a possibility anymore in the way that we knew it. So what are we going to do? Enters the prophet Haggai, who speaks for God, and he says to the governors of Zerubbabel, he says to the priest Joshua, he says, it's going to be okay. Fear not. There are so many times in the Bible when those two words or words like them are said, fear not, don't be afraid. Because we realize that when things are different, when they don't meet our expectations, one of our first experiences, an experience, a feeling that's not even a thought, but comes from somewhere farther back, is fear. This is different, and now I'm afraid. And God, as God always does, addresses the reality on the ground and says, you're not. And then Haggai says to everybody, remember way back when, some of you, remember when church used to be like that? I'm sorry, when Judah used to be like that? Well, some of you don't remember that because you're too young to remember that. But it's going to be okay, because it's not going to be like that anymore. And Haggai reminds the people where they came from. The last time they came out of exile, it wasn't from the kingdom of Cyrus and then Darius, it was from Egypt. It says, remember when we came out of Egypt? We didn't even have a temple. We had a box. Carried God around in a box. We didn't even have laws. They weren't even one of those stone tablets yet. We had manna. We had quail. That's what we had. And God was still faithful. And we still thrived. The reality on the ground is never going to be what it once was. And maybe that's okay. Because when we let go of what was, we make room for where God is. Second story of mismatched expectations. Jesus getting closer and closer to Jerusalem, closer and closer to a time of trial, closer and closer to what I am sure he knew was his own death. And it's interesting to me that the Sadducees are talking about death and what happens afterward like it's some sort of a game or some sort of a joke or like a story problem to be solved. You remember story problems? If a train is traveling at 50 miles an hour, the answer to that is it's not Metro North. It's traveling at 50 miles an hour. But anyway, they're treating it like it's some kind of a game. And Jesus has got boots on the ground. This is the reality. And this is the reality for all of us. Last week we celebrated the feasts of all saints and all souls. We remembered terrible news. All of us are going to die. And so these questions about what happens next, they're not a game. This is at the heart of what we're doing. And what is our expectation? The Sadducees are trying to make a point. They don't think there is anything like resurrection. They're like, once you're done, end of the story. You live, you die, end. And they're trying to point it out by using kind of a clever story problem, like a bad version of a Broadway musical, One Bride and Seven Brothers. And Jesus says, no, you're getting it all wrong. You've got it all backwards. Jesus reminds them that the patterns that we think are here, when we replicate it there, is not the way to go. Now, I have to confess that sometimes when I need a little comfort, I imagine that heaven is going to be me on my big brown couch with all the pets I ever loved who died in front of the gas fireplace. Because that pretty much is it. It's celestial Netflix, just endless episodes of Great British Bake Off. Sounds pretty good. But that's a human response. That's me wanting to replicate in the sky the good parts of the life that I know. That's me wanting to have an assurance of things that I can't have assurance about. But this is what I can have assurance about. I know that the promises of God are true. I know that resurrection is the life we live. We know that when Jesus was resurrected, we see it in the Gospels. He was so changed in resurrection, not even his best friends recognized him. The people he's been walking alongside, working with, eating with, resting with, vacationing with, they didn't even recognize him. We are so transformed in resurrection. And yet, Jesus, like a guy, helps us remember Moses. Moses, who got his first text message from God in the form of a burning bush. Who would have expected? God says, I'm not going to use the usual ways to be in touch, because I'm God. He says that even Moses knew that the ancestors were there, the great ones, Abraham, Jacob, Isaac, all there. Quantum physics teaches us that what has been made, what the energy that exists can never be destroyed. It can never go away. It will always just change. That is true for us as well. I believe it with my whole being. I don't know what it's going to be like when I'm on my big celestial brown couch with Miles the pug and Hilda the cat. It's got to be at least there. But I know that the love I know, the love that I know from God, the love that I experience with people in my life, that can never be changed. That can never be destroyed. That love is a constant. I know that when I go from here, I'll be united with the God who made me. It's an experience beyond anything I can imagine. There is no technical challenge brief that can replicate that. Our imagining is just as good as our abilities. And it's pretty good. What God offers is so much better. so much greater. And that our resurrection life, nothing will be destroyed or lost, but changed in a way better than our dreams and beyond our imagining. May it be true for you.